My brother slid the forged amendment across Grandma's dining room table with the same hand he'd used to coach my Little League team 20 years ago. "Sign it, Claire," he said quietly. "Tonight, or I promise you, this gets ugly." His wife was standing behind him, arms crossed, wearing a silk blouse that still had the department store crease in the sleeve. She dressed up for this. They both had. My brother in his blazer, her in that blouse, like they were attending a closing instead of a crime. I looked at the document. Then I looked at the pen he'd placed beside it. Then I picked up my coffee mug and took a long, slow sip. I wasn't afraid. I was waiting. Because 48 hours before my brother threatened me in our dead grandmother's dining room, I had already made sure that every word spoken in that house tonight would be captured, time-stamped, and transmitted directly to my firm's senior partner, 2 federal witnesses, and the county district attorney's office. The pen was still sitting there when the front door opened. Drop a comment and tell me where you're listening from right now. I genuinely want to know who's out there with me. 3 weeks earlier, my grandmother died on a Tuesday morning in early October, in the same bedroom she'd slept in for 51 years, with her cat on the pillow beside her, and a library book still open on her nightstand. She was 83 years old. She had strong opinions about crossword puzzles, weak opinions about television, and the sharpest memory of anyone I have ever known. She was also the only person in my family who had ever treated me like I mattered. I was the one who handled her estate planning, not because I pushed for it, but because 6 years ago, when she was first diagnosed with early-stage cognitive decline, she drove herself to my office in downtown Philadelphia, sat down across my desk, and said, "You're the only lawyer in this family and the only one I trust. Do this right." I had drafted her will, structured her assets into a revocable living trust, and updated the documents every year since. My brother did not know any of this. He had never asked. In the 11 years since he moved to Atlanta with his wife, he had called our grandmother exactly as often as he needed something from her, which averaged to about 3 times a year. Birthday, Christmas, and whenever the money ran short. The day after her funeral, he called me. I was still in my car outside the cemetery, watching the grounds crew fold up the chairs, when my phone buzzed. His name on the screen felt wrong, the way it always did, the way something familiar can look suddenly threatening when the light shifts. I answered. "We need to talk about the house," he said. "No hello. No how are you holding up. Just the house." I said, "The estate is in probate review. The attorney of record is handling the process." "You're the attorney of record. I'm also the executor," I said, "which means there's a process, and the process takes time." He was quiet for a moment. Then, in a softer voice, the voice I recognized from every time he wanted something, he said, "I found some paperwork at the house, Claire. An amendment to her will, handwritten. It changes things significantly. I think we need to sit down as a family before this goes any further." I gripped the steering wheel. There was no amendment. I would have known. I had been managing those documents for 6 years. But if he believed there was, or if he had fabricated one and believed I wouldn't know the difference, then sitting across from me in that dining room was exactly where he wanted to be. He thought I was the estate attorney who had been close to Grandma. He did not know that I had already transferred every meaningful asset out of the revocable trust and into an irrevocable charitable foundation 2 months before she died, at her explicit direction, with a notarized letter of intent signed in the presence of 3 witnesses. There was nothing left to steal. But if I told him that now, he would simply disappear, regroup, and try something else later. A contested will filing. A capacity challenge. Something designed to tie the estate in litigation for years and drain whatever remained in administrative costs. I knew how these things worked because I spent half my professional life preventing them. The only way to end this cleanly was to let him show me the forgery. I told him I would come to Grandma's house on Saturday. I told him to bring the documents. I did not tell him what I was going to bring. The next morning, I sat across from my investigator, a former forensic document examiner named Dennis, who had worked with my firm for 4 years and had the quiet, methodical energy of someone who had seen every version of every lie. I laid out what I knew. My brother believed there was an amendment. Either he had found a genuine document, which was impossible, or he had created one, which meant he had forged our grandmother's signature on a legal instrument. Dennis looked at me over the rim of his glasses. "What do you need?" "I need it on record," I said. "Everything. Audio, video if possible, and I need the timestamp synced to the property's IP address so there's no chain of custody argument." He nodded slowly. "The house is yours? I'm listed as co-owner on the deed. Has been for 4 years. Grandma added me after we updated the estate plan." So if he brings a forged amendment claiming ownership of the property, he'll be attempting to defraud a co-owner using a fabricated instrument, I said. That's not civil. That's criminal. Dennis set down his pen. Claire, you know you could just tell him the estate is already settled. File the paperwork. Let probate run its course. You don't have to walk into whatever this is. I looked at him. He stole $40,000 from me when I was 19. My grandmother gave me that money for law school. He told my parents I'd spent it on things I hadn't. They believed him. I spent 3 years working nights and weekends to make up the difference. He has never once acknowledged it. Dennis was quiet. I'm not doing this for the money, I said. I'm doing this so he can never do it to anyone else. I need him to show me the document. Dennis drove to Grandma's house on Friday night while I was still in the city. He was there less than an hour. When he texted me from his car outside, the message was simple. You're covered. Don't touch anything in the dining room. I drove down Saturday morning through the kind of October rain that turns highway exits into gray suggestions. The house was a colonial in a suburb outside of Wilmington, white with blue shutters, a maple tree in the front yard that was the exact color of an ember. I had spent almost every childhood summer in that house. I knew which porch step creaked and where my grandmother kept her spare key, and that she always made coffee too strong because she believed weak coffee was a character flaw. My brother's rental car was already in the driveway. His wife opened the front door before I reached it. She smiled with just her mouth. Claire, you look tired. Long drive, I said, and stepped inside. My brother was in the kitchen. He had made coffee, which felt like an appropriation of something. He handed me a mug without asking how I took it, so it was black, and I carried it to the dining room table and sat down. The room smelled like my grandmother's fabric softener. Her reading glasses were still on the sideboard. I looked at them once and then looked away. My brother came in and sat across from me. His wife took the chair to his right. There was a manila folder on the table in front of him, and he rested his hand on it the way people do when they want you to notice something without appearing to want you to notice it. Thanks for coming, he said. You said you found paperwork, I said. He opened the folder, slid a document across the table toward me. It was 3 pages, typed, with a handwritten notation in the margin of the second page and a signature on the last that was meant to look like my grandmother's. It was not her signature. I had seen her signature on hundreds of documents over 6 years. This one had the right general shape, the looping G at the start of her first name, the compressed letters in the middle, but the pressure was wrong and the terminal stroke went up when hers always came down. Whoever had copied it had worked from a photocopy rather than an original. The document claimed to amend the existing trust to distribute the house and all remaining investment accounts to my brother as the sole beneficiary, bypassing the original equal distribution between us. I read it twice. Then I set it down. Where did you find this? I asked. In the attic, he said. In a box with her other important papers. It's dated 8 months ago. 8 months ago, she was in the early stages of vascular dementia, I said, keeping my voice level. She wouldn't have been able to draft a 3-page amendment without assistance. She had good days, his wife said quickly. You weren't around as much as you think, Claire. We visited her more than you know. That was not true. I had the visitor logs from her home health aide and the security camera footage from the front door that I had installed 2 years ago for exactly this kind of revisionism. But I did not say that yet. Even if this is valid, I said, an amendment like this would need to have been filed with the trust's administrative record. There's no copy in the file I maintain. Maybe you missed it, my brother said. I looked at him. He held my gaze with the practiced ease of someone who had been lying comfortably his entire life, who had never once been caught and made to sit in the wreckage of it. The rain hit the dining room window in a steady pulse. I thought about a Saturday morning in October, 11 years ago. I was 19 and home from my first semester of college, sitting at the kitchen table with a bank statement in my hand that showed a zero balance in an account that was supposed to have $40,000 in it. My grandmother had deposited that money the previous spring, every cent of her CD that had matured, specifically for my tuition. I had not touched it. I had not even set up online access yet. My brother was 26 and living in the basement of my parents' house and had been for 2 years. When I showed my father the statement, he sat down heavily and was quiet for a long time. Then he said that my brother had borrowed against it, temporarily, and that it was being paid back, and that I needed to understand that family takes care of family even when it's hard. My mother cried. My brother was not in the room for any of this. I never saw a single dollar of repayment. When I brought it up the following Christmas, my father told me I was holding a grudge and that I needed to let it go for the sake of our relationships. I paid for law school myself. I took out loans I spent 7 years repaying. I worked nights at a hotel front desk for 3 of those years. I made it work because I had inherited my grandmother's belief that a thing worth doing is worth doing yourself, and because I had decided, somewhere around my second year of law school, that I would become the kind of person my brother could never outmaneuver again. I blinked. I was back in the dining room. The document was still on the table. I let my shoulders drop slightly. I let my expression soften into something uncertain, something that looked like the younger sister trying to process a complication she was not prepared for. "I don't understand," I said, and I let a small waver into my voice. "If this is real, then everything I filed would need to be revised," my brother said, and I heard the relief in his tone, the way tension leaves a body when a trap closes. "Which is why I need you to sign an acknowledgement that this amendment supersedes the original distribution." He slid another document across the table. This one was simpler. A single page. It was an acknowledgement, signed by me as executor, confirming the validity of the amendment and authorizing transfer of the property and accounts. If I signed it, he would have a document in my own handwriting that appeared to ratify a forgery. He could file it. It would tie the estate in litigation for potentially years. He would not necessarily win, but the cost of fighting it would be enormous. And he knew I was a solo practitioner at a mid-size firm, not a partner at somewhere with unlimited resources. He had thought this through. He just had not thought it all the way through. "I need a minute," I said. I pressed the heels of my hands against my eyes. "This is a lot to process." "Take your time," his wife said, in the voice people use when they mean the opposite. I stood up, said I needed some air, and walked to the kitchen. I stood at the counter for 60 seconds. I breathed. I thought about Dennis's text from Friday night. I thought about the irrevocable trust document sitting in a fireproof safe in my office, bearing my grandmother's signature from a morning 2 months before she died, when she had been completely lucid and had made me read every paragraph aloud to her twice. I thought about $40,000 and a bank statement with a zero balance. Then I walked back into the dining room and sat down. "Okay," I said. I picked up the pen he had left on the table. My brother leaned forward. I held the pen for a moment. Then I set it down. "I'm not going to sign this," I said. My voice was completely steady now. "The performance was over. And I want to explain to you exactly why, so there's no confusion about what happens next." His expression shifted. "Claire, the document you brought is a forgery," I said. "Her signature has the wrong terminal stroke. She always wrote her G with a downward finish. Every document I have from the last 6 years confirms that. Whoever copied it worked from a reproduction, not an original, which is why the pen pressure is inconsistent in the second and third lines." His wife stood up. "This is ridiculous. We found it in the—" "I know you didn't find it in the attic," I said, "because I cataloged every document in this house 18 months ago when we updated the estate plan. I have a complete inventory. This amendment does not appear anywhere in that inventory, and it was not in the filing I maintain because it did not exist 18 months ago. It was created after her death. That's not an accusation. That is a conclusion supported by documentary evidence." My brother's face had gone very still. "I also need to tell you," I said, "that this conversation has been recorded since you arrived, audio and video, through the home security system that I installed and that I own, because I am a co-owner of this property. That recording has been transmitting in real time to my firm's senior partner, to a notary, and to a contact at the district attorney's office who I spoke with on Thursday. The silence in the room was the kind that has weight. The document you placed in front of me and asked me to sign," I continued, "is a forged legal instrument. Presenting it to me and requesting my signature on an acknowledgement of its validity constitutes attempted fraud. The threat you made when I arrived, which is also on the recording, adds a coercion element." "I didn't threaten you," he said. His voice had lost all its shape. "You told me to sign it or it gets ugly," I said. "That's on the recording, time-stamped." His wife sat back down. She was very pale. "There's one more thing," I said. I reached into my bag and placed a document on the table. A real one. 2 months before Grandma died, she and I met with a trust attorney from outside my firm, a neutral third party, and we restructured her remaining assets into an irrevocable charitable foundation. Her investment accounts, her liquid assets, all of it. The foundation has already been funded and is operational. There are no accounts to transfer because they no longer belong to the estate. They belong to a registered nonprofit that distributes grants to adult literacy programs, which was something she cared about deeply. I watched my brother's face go through several stages of something that was not quite disbelief and not quite grief, but lived in the territory between them. The place where a person realizes that the plan they built was built on ground that had already shifted. The house, he said finally. He was grasping. The house is still. The house has had 2 owners for 4 years, I said. Me and Grandma. It transferred to me automatically at her death by right of survivorship. It was never part of the probate estate. I've been a co-owner since 2021. You can look it up in the county deed records. I can give you the address of the recorder's office if that would help. His wife made a small sound. You came here, my brother said. His voice had dropped to something thin and stripped. You just let us. I came here because I needed you to show me the document, I said. A forgery only becomes evidence when someone presents it. He pushed back from the table and stood. I watched him look around the room, at the walls, at the corners where the security cameras were, at his wife who was staring at her hands. This is your fault, he said to me. The old instinct, the one that had worked for 20 years, the one that had always found a way to make me the problem. You froze me out of her life. You controlled everything. You manipulated a sick old woman into cutting me out. I thought about her reading glasses on the sideboard. I thought about the library book still open on her nightstand. She drove herself to my office, I said quietly. She made every decision herself. I drafted what she asked me to draft. That's all I ever did. She loved me, he said, and there was something real in it, something that might have been grief if it hadn't been sitting next to a forged document. I know she did, I said. She also knew exactly what you were. He left. His wife followed without looking at me. I heard the front door close, then the sound of the rental car backing down the driveway, then nothing but the rain. I sat in the dining room for a while. I drank the rest of my coffee. It had gone cold. Outside the window, the maple tree was still that same burning color, indifferent to everything. My phone buzzed. Dennis. DA's office confirmed receipt. You doing okay? I typed back. Ask me in a month. My brother was charged 8 weeks later. Forgery of a legal instrument, attempted fraud, and filing a fraudulent document with probate court, which his attorney had done the Monday after he left the house, apparently hoping to get ahead of whatever he thought was coming. The fact that he filed it made everything worse for him. It converted an attempt into a completed act. His wife cooperated with prosecutors in exchange for reduced charges. She confirmed that the document had been created at their kitchen table using a notary stamp he had purchased online and a signature he had practiced from a photograph of one of my grandmother's old birthday cards that he had taken from the house years ago. At sentencing, his attorney argued that grief had impaired his judgment and that his prior record was clean. The judge noted that a clean prior record is not the same as a virtuous character and sentenced him to 22 months, with eligibility for early release at 14. He has not contacted me. I don't expect him to. My parents called twice. The first call, my mother cried and asked how I could do this to the family. I told her that the family had done things to me too, and that the difference was I had documentation. She hung up. The second call, my father asked if there was anything that could be done to shorten the sentence. I told him that wasn't how it worked and that he should speak to an attorney, and I gave him the name of someone at a firm I trusted. He did not call back after that. I spent the first weekend of December at my grandmother's house, clearing out the last of her things and beginning the process of deciding what to do with it. Her reading glasses are in a box now, wrapped in tissue. The library book. I returned. It was overdue by 6 weeks, and the library waived the fine when I explained the situation. I'm keeping the house for now. I sit in her kitchen sometimes in the morning and drink coffee and look at the maple tree through the window. It's bare now that December has come. Just the shape of the thing. The branches that have been growing in the same direction for 50 years. I think about her a lot. I think about the morning she drove to my office and sat across from me and said, simply, do this right. I think about what she knew when she said it and what she trusted me to understand. I also think about the amendment, the forged signature with the wrong terminal stroke, my brother's hand resting on the folder, his wife's silk blouse with the department store crease still in the sleeve. I think about a bank statement with a zero balance, and a 19-year-old girl sitting at a kitchen table trying to understand how the people who were supposed to protect her had simply decided not to. She protected me. In the end, she built the walls quietly, document by document, over years, and she handed me the keys while she was still able to hold them. Some people build a legacy in stone. My grandmother built hers in clauses and codicils and a right of survivorship that transferred a white house with blue shutters into my name on a Tuesday morning in October, without drama, without fanfare, simply because she had planned it that way. I made her coffee this morning, strong the way she liked it, in one of her cups from the cabinet above the stove. The house is quiet. The silence is mine.